They denied my son a graduation gift, so he stunned everyone during his speech. They canceled his gift yesterday. Today he's holding the microphone. The gym smells like varnish and popcorn, and my program shakes in my hand, even though I'm a bus mechanic who can lift an axle without blinking. I'm Riley, 46, good with torque wrenches and bad with speeches. Theo, my son, my quiet compass, earned the donor-funded Hale Promise Scholarship back in March with a letter on embossed paper and a photo request we never scheduled. Yesterday, the PTA emailed, policy under review, distribution paused due to concerns. Concerns about what? An anonymous rumor. I kept rereading the line until the screen blurred and the oil under my nails felt like guilt. If he speaks and names names, he risks recommendation letters, internships, and the soft doors that swing open for kids who don't make trouble. If he stays polite, he swallows a story that stains more than his own name. Breathe, Ms. Ortiz told me on the phone last night. Gather documents. Keep your head. But it's graduation day, and the documents are stuffed in an envelope under my seat like a first aid kit nobody wants to open. Theo adjusts his cap. Dr. Klein smiles political sunshine. Marissa Hale, whose family name is on the gym, sits in the front row, perfect posture and pearls that flash when cameras catch them. I can hear the line Theo practiced. Thank you for investing in our futures. What if the investment skipped the kid who couldn't fake gratitude? We're a small town. Rumors drive faster than my buses. The rumor said Theo cheated on his calculus final because his teacher likes him. The teacher is a 60-year-old man who hates phones and likes chalk. The rumor said I begged for special treatment in a PTA hallway. I was in my garage inhale deep in brake cleaner when the meeting happened. The rumor said Theo has an attitude problem. He does. He refuses to smile for cameras that want credit more than kids. I text him, proud of you, regardless of anything. He replies, facts only. I don't know if he means the speech or our lives. Dr. Klein taps the mic, the feedback whines, and the seniors settle like a flock. If Theo tells the truth with dates and amounts, somebody's mask will crack on camera. If he doesn't, theirs stays smooth and his future clamps shut. He stands, smooths his gown, and turns toward the mic with a look I've only seen when engines seize. We didn't grow up with donor dinners. We grew up with used textbooks and a mason jar labeled Theo Fund on the fridge that collected tips and overtime pay, a rattle of coins that sounded like faith. Theo mowed lawns, fixed neighbors' laptops, and tutored freshmen who thought algebra was a language from Mars. When the Hale Promise letter arrived, congratulations, selected for $5,000 toward post-secondary, we taped it on the same fridge above the jar and cried into stir-fry. The letter had Dr. Klein's signature and a digital countersign from the PTA treasurer. The footer said funds would be dispersed after graduation upon confirmation of eligibility. We framed eligibility on the wall like a family creed. Keep grades up, keep your side of the street swept. At the April Awards night, Theo's name wasn't announced for the donor photo op, scheduling issue, Marissa said, smiling with her whole mouth and none of her eyes. We clapped for the kids who did get called and clapped again at home, because clapping costs nothing. Theo rolled his shoulders like athletes do when they're resetting their joints. It's fine, he said. We'll get the check later. He returned to his speech draft and crossed out anything that sounded like begging. At the final PTA meeting in May, I stood by the snack table while parents debated centerpieces and security. When I mentioned the scholarship letter, just happy, no pressure, someone whispered legacy like a password I didn't own. A dad with a yacht smile said, those funds prioritize fit, as if my kid wore the wrong bones. I went home and replaced the timing belt until my hands stopped trembling. 2 weeks ago, a counselor introduced the valedictorians and speakers on stage for rehearsal. A photographer asked Theo to pose with a banner. He said, I'll take a group photo after the band kids finish loading, because he'd promised to help. The photographer frowned. A small thing, but small things stack like pallets. Then the email yesterday, policy under review. No specifics. No call. Just the kind of tone businesses use when they've already decided. I printed the letter that promised and the email that doubted and put them side by side to see which weighed more. And then, in the grocery aisle that night, somebody said, heard your boy's gift got pulled for cause. The first red flag wasn't the email. It was the counselor's eyes the morning before, when Ms. Ortiz glanced at her screen and then at Theo with a look that said I wish I could tell you in person and softer. She asked him to confirm his college deposit receipt. He did. She asked me how my shifts were going. I said, greasy, as God intended. She pressed her lips together like a stapler. You two keep everything in writing, she whispered, then slid a blank form across the desk labeled Public Records Request. I filled one out with polite words and a spine. All communications regarding the Hale Promise Scholarship for Theodore Riley, including emails, meeting minutes, and disbursement dates. The district clerk said, 10 business days. I said, graduation is in 1. She shrugged with kindness that still felt like a wall. Later that day, the school Instagram posted a carousel of senior successes featuring kids I love and one smiling photo with a caption thanking the Hale Foundation for supporting excellence. Theo wasn't pictured. He was up to his elbows in the band trailer, ratchet straps singing. At dinner, he held my phone and scrolled. I'm happy for them, he said, and he meant it. I just don't like performative philanthropy. I told him not to use words that get a kid labeled ungrateful in a town this size. He raised an eyebrow and finished the dishes. That night the email came. Policy under review due to concerns. I replied with my best shop floor grammar. What policy? What concerns? Please identify specific clause and timeline. Dr. Klein answered at 6:14 a.m. We're working to ensure equitable outcomes for all students. Thank you for your patience. Equitable like equal or equitable like quiet. At 7:03 a.m. a mom I barely know sent a message. I heard there was a cheating thing? Not accusing, just concerned. I replied, Theo has never cheated. Please don't repeat rumors. She heart reacted like we'd discussed salad dressing. By 8:20, Ms. Ortiz called from her car. Riley, the donor rep is pushing optics, she said. I can't say more, but you should check the metadata on the award email. I printed it, exported the EML, and opened the headers at the print shop. The date sent field on the PDA confirmation didn't match the received line by 12 hours, and the message ID routed through a third-party mailer with a vanity domain ending in gift. Theo looked at the page and whispered, why would a school award need a marketing relay? I requested a meeting with Dr. Klein and Marissa Hale. They offered me a chair that felt like a polite trap. We appreciate your engagement, the principal said, hands cathedraled. Given certain concerns raised anonymously, the PDA has asked us to pause disbursement while we review. I asked, concerns like what? He looked at Marissa. She smiled like a weather app. There were whispers of irregularities, she said. Nothing personal, of course. Just due diligence. Due diligence has dates, I said. What date did you receive the anonymous tip? She glanced at her tablet. Last Thursday. My records request receipt showed a print time Wednesday night. I stared. And which policy allows rescinding a promised award without notifying the family of specific claims? Marissa's smile thinned. The Hale Promise prioritizes students who embody our values, she said. Gratitude. Cooperation. Cooperation with what? Theo asked from the doorway. He had asked to be there. I had said yes, because secrecy breeds mold. Dr. Klein flinched. Theo, he said, this is sensitive. Sensitive is for surgery and grief, Theo said softly. This is a check. Marissa folded her hands. It's also our family's reputation, she said. We cannot fund students who create hostility toward donors. Theo blinked. Is refusing a staged photo hostility? Klein cut in quickly. There was also a question regarding a calculus grade. From whom? I asked. A concerned parent, he said. Name, I said. Anonymous, he said. I felt my mechanic calm rise, the one that enters when an engine throws heat, and you keep your hands steady anyway. We will need the policy clause, the timeline, and the channel by which the tip was received, I said. Also the fund bylaws. Marissa stood. The bylaws are proprietary, she said. The money is ours. And the announcement was public, Theo replied. So is the retraction now. We left with air that tasted like pennies. Outside, Ms. Ortiz handed me a sticky note. B12 spreadsheet. Check last edit. In the data room, the PDA treasurer's assistant looked at me like a person who wanted to be invisible and said, the line for Theo moved yesterday. I asked who moved it. She whispered a board member's name that matched a vanity plate in the front row. Then I saw the board member's email domain match the marketing relay on the award letter. At home, the kitchen table turned into a war room. Envelopes, printouts, a legal pad with a column labeled dates and another labeled amounts. Theo's cap hung from a cabinet knob like a dare. We could let it go, I said, because good parents name all doors. You give the speech, don't rock the boat, and we fight this in paperwork later. He poured 2 waters and set one in front of me. If it were only me, I'd ignore it, he said. But if their process lets them move lines and smear kids, it'll hit the next person with fewer receipts. Ms. Ortiz FaceTimed in from her couch, hair in a bun, eyes sharp. You need documentation, not fire, she said. Riley, file the district complaint with exhibits. Award letter metadata, email timelines, spreadsheet edits, PDA bylaws request, counselor notes. Theo, draft 2 speech versions, standard and factual. You can choose on stage. Will they pull my recommendation letters? Theo asked. They might, she said. But a clean record with evidence outlives performative recommendations. You're principled, not reckless, show that. We practiced saying thank you in a way that didn't taste like chalk. I tucked the envelope under my seat like a spare tire. Before bed, I scrolled the town group on Facebook. A post, proud of our donors. Some kids forget to be grateful. Comments harvested the usual crop. Standards matter, we should vet attitudes. Entitlement is wild these days. I typed and erased 3 replies. Theo took the phone and placed it face down. We don't argue with mobs, he said. We outlast them. At midnight, an email arrived from no reply at Hale Scholarships. Give. Please refrain from spreading misinformation. Further action may affect eligibility. I looked at the ceiling where a water stain looked like a map of all the places we never had time to go. My phone buzzed again. A friend in the custodial crew texted a photo from the PDA office printer tray. Donor talking points. Emphasize values. Highlight community. Avoid specifics. He added, didn't see this. I saved the image and exhaled slow. In the dark, Theo said from his room, if I tell the plain truth, I might burn bridges. Or you might find the bridge was painted on a wall, I said. Then a private message came from a throwaway account with 1 sentence and a PDF attachment labeled bylaws. The bylaws PDF carried Hale Foundation branding and an edit trail that someone forgot to flatten. Last modified by M. Hale pulsed from the top like an accidental confession. In Section 3.2, it read, disbursement shall follow public announcement unless substantiated cause exists under 3.2a. Subsection A. Listed 3 causes. Academic dishonesty confirmed by the school, withdrawal from graduation, or ineligibility by income threshold misrepresentation. None applied. Section 4. 1 required written notice to the student and guardian with an opportunity to respond within 5 business days. We received neither. I opened the email headers from the award and the pause notices. The message ID string on the pause shared a route with an internal board thread forwarded through the Give domain. The in reply to pointed to an origin address, mail@halefam.org. I traced the spreadsheet edit log for the B12 line, the disbursement tracker. Someone with admin rights had moved Theo's row to a new tab titled Pending Review 30 minutes after the counselor rehearsal ended. The comment bubble on the cell read, Attitude? Declined photo optics? I took screenshots, printed everything at the 24-hour shop that sells coffee like penance, and labeled each page with a sticky tab. On the way out, Coach Jamal caught me by the door. Riley, he said, lowering his voice. A parent came to me with concerns about Theo. When I asked for specifics, they said Theo refused to show gratitude on socials. That's not a policy. He squeezed my shoulder. If he speaks, tell him to stay surgical. At dawn, I emailed the district compliance officer using the address Ms. Ortiz gave me. Subject, urgent, potential policy breach, Hale promised disbursement. I attached the bylaws with edit trail, the metadata, the spreadsheet screenshots, and our award letter. I requested a pre-commencement meeting. 30 minutes later, a reply, 11:30 a.m. Today, administrative office. Bring originals. No recordings in the lobby, 1 witness permitted. I texted Theo, we have a window. He wrote back, we'll use it. He added a line from his speech draft. Gratitude without truth is a receipt for something you didn't buy. I smiled into my coffee and then stopped because smiling felt like hubris. On my porch, a large white envelope leaned against the railing. No return address, just my name in block letters and a USB drive inside labeled minutes. The drive held audio files named by dates and a folder titled PDA Minutes. Working. In a clip from 2 weeks earlier, I heard Marissa's voice, public charming, private efficient. We need to be careful with the Hail Promise photos, she said. Theo declined a branding opportunity. If the recipient won't align with donor messaging, we should consider reallocating to a program that supports visibility. A man's voice, board member, probably the one with the vanity plate, added. There's also chatter he's the favorite of Klein's math guy. Optics. Someone else murmured. Move to review under 3, 2, A. Until resolved? Papers rustled. A vote. Not a single mention of notice to the student. The working minutes document showed a sanitized summary. Discussion of brand alignment. Tabled for policy check. No vote recorded. The sanitized minutes went to the district site. The real ones lived on a USB some conscience couldn't carry. At 11:30, we sat in the admin office across from the compliance officer, a woman with unflappable hair and a pen that clicked only when lies approached. I presented the award letter, the bylaws with track changes, the email headers, the spreadsheet move, and a typed summary of the audio. We're not here to explode, I said. We're here to prevent harm and ensure policy is followed. She nodded. You did your homework, she said. This is concerning. She issued a case number and promised a preliminary recommendation before the ceremony. No guarantees, she added. But we can direct the school to comply with notice requirements and to avoid punitive action if a student speaks factually. On the way out, Marissa was in the hallway, talking fast to Dr. Klein. We don't reward ingratitude, she said, not seeing us. He rubbed his forehead. We reward compliance with policy, he said, seeing us. And I like my job. We went to the print shop and prepared 2 one-page packets labeled facts for transparency. Dates, amounts, clauses, case number. Theo slid one into his gown. Worst case, he said, this becomes the appendix people pretend to read. He revised his speech, removing adjectives like knives from a tray. Every sentence became declarative, lean. At 3 p.m., the compliance officer emailed a preliminary note to Klein with us CC'd. Proceed with original disbursement schedule unless substantiated cause under 3. 2. A. Is documented. Provide notice and response window if any review continues. Avoid chilling effect on student speech that is factual. At 4:30, a text pinged from an unknown number. If your kid torches our family tonight, he'll regret it in admissions. We traced the unknown number to a prepaid, but the timing matched a meeting in the PDA conference room. Ms. Ortiz messaged, check the donation ledger. She attached a photo of a whiteboard showing Hail Promise arrows pointing to STEM outreach with a surname that matched Marissa's nephew, the one launching a robotics club that conveniently needed seed money. The ledger in the treasurer's spreadsheet had a new line labeled Internal Reallocation per Board Discussion dated yesterday at 2:17 p.m. 30 minutes after Theo declined a second photo op request with a brand consultant. The amount moved matched Theo's promised award. So the what crystallized, earmarked funds, publicly promised, quietly redirected under the fog of policy review, side-eyed by a rumor seeded after a kid declined to be a prop. The why hid behind legacy and optics, and maybe a family plan for headlines. But we didn't need motive to fix mechanics. We needed daylight on the gears. I called Coach Jamal. If Theo tells the truth, he needs to propose a clean fix, I said. Not just point fingers. Offer a process, he said. Escrow the funds with the district. Create a written notice rule. Audit all reallocations since January. Theo listened, then typed a paragraph with the calm of someone defusing. I'll thank everyone, he said. Then I'll read dates and amounts and propose a transparent remedy for all seniors. He looked at me. No names. Just nouns and verbs. I printed the fix on the back of his speech and tucked a copy into my envelope. In the mirror, I shaved the oil from my hands. In the parking lot, parents posed under banners. Marissa stood near the stage, shining like a billboard, shaking hands that had never changed a bus tire. Dr. Klein adjusted his tie with the resignation of a man who's read the email we were CC'd on. The band tuned. The bleachers groaned. My heart did both. Theo squeezed my shoulder. Facts only, he said. Proud regardless, I replied. The principal introduced him with safe adjectives. Theo walked to the mic. pulled the folded page from his sleeve, and set down the version that ends easy. Then he lifted the one that weighs what it says and what it can unsay. Marissa's smile froze as the first date left his mouth like a clean blade. I don't believe in righteous explosions. I believe in torque specs and checklists. We built one on my kitchen table with Ms. Ortiz on speaker, Coach Jamal by text, and the compliance officer's preliminary note printed twice. Step 1. Prepare a clean, non-accusatory memo titled Process Proposal for Graduation Funds with 3 bullet points. 1. Place any disputed awards into temporary district escrow until notice and response windows are met. 2. Publish fund bylaws on the district's site. 3. Create a standing 72-hour notice rule before any public retraction. Step 2. Collect proof with chain of custody, original, EML files, the bylaw PDF with last modified by M. Hale, spreadsheet version history with timestamps, and the USB audio hash calculated by the print shop's tech so no one could claim edits. Step 3. Request a time-stamped receipt when we hand these to Dr. Klein, the PDA secretary, and the district office. Step 4. Draft Theo's factual paragraph with dates and amounts only, plus the remedy, no names, no adjectives. We practiced lines like they were triage, short, specific, survivable. Read numbers like a nurse reads dosages, I told Theo. He nodded, tapping his pen against the margin where he'd added case #C, 1148, the compliance ticket. If they rescind my mic time, he asked, then I will read it during the parent thank you, I said. Acrylic podiums don't stop sound. Ms. Ortiz laughed once, the gallows kind. If anyone threatens letters or admissions, forward to me and the officer, she said. Retaliation leaves footprints. We printed 200 single-page handouts labeled transparency notes for families because truth gets legs when it has staples. On the back, we wrote 3 questions parents could ask at future meetings. Which policy clause? What date? Who benefits? I packed handouts into a box like lug nuts. Theo laid out his gown and asked if a necktie counts as branding. Only if it says halo and rhinestones, I said, and he smiled even with his stomach tight. At 4, the superintendent's office emailed a neutral sentence. We encourage celebrations to reflect community values of integrity and respect. I read it 3 times to hear what it didn't say. At 5, our doorbell rang. A neighbor dropped off a tray of brownies for nerves. At 6, Coach texted, remember, propose a fix, don't perform a takedown. Theo underlined escrow twice. We loaded the car, gown, cap, handouts, envelope of exhibits, a roll of blue tape, and a dignity that felt heavier than steel. I locked the apartment, pocketed the case number, and repeated Ms. Ortiz's mantra, procedures, not performances. Then my phone lit with an unknown number and the district's crest. Then the superintendent called my phone and asked for a meeting. The superintendent's office smelled like coffee and carpet decisions. He had the careful tone of a man who survives decades by never saying the second sentence. We want a smooth ceremony, he began. I've reviewed your submission. There appear to be inconsistencies between donor practice and district policy. Relief cracked through me like a seized bolt giving way. We're proposing escrow and notice, I said. Theo will speak factually, propose a remedy, and thank everyone. He folded his hands. If he sticks to dates and publicly available documents, that is his right. He paused. We discourage naming individuals. So do we, Theo said. Then came the soft pressure. I've received concerns that your approach could sour relationships, he said. Donor partnerships matter in a small district. I inhaled slow. So does policy, I said. If donors require obedience to optics, call it theater, not education. His mouth twitched, a real human almost escaping. Point taken, he said. Here's my request. Share your handout after the ceremony, not during. Let the moment be for kids. Theo considered, then nodded. I'll keep the paper in my pocket, he said. But the words stay. In the hallway, Dr. Klein waited with the PDA secretary, who held a manila folder like a flotation device. We received compliance's note, Klein said. We'll proceed with disbursement as announced in March, pending any documented cause. The secretary added, voice small. I didn't know about the reallocation. Her eyes shone. I'm sorry. I believed her. Systems make decent people complicit while better talkers steer the wheel. Backstage, Marissa intercepted us, smile lacquered. We're all here to celebrate, she said. Wouldn't it be better to resolve quietly next week? She slid a single sheet toward Theo, reaffirmation statement, empty lines waiting for his signature. I agree that donor funds are discretionary and acknowledgments are a condition. Theo read it, folded it in half, and handed it back. Acknowledgement is earned, he said. Not bartered. Her eyes cooled 5 degrees. You're making a mistake, she said. You think facts protect you from real-world consequences. Facts are the real world. Theo said, voice calm enough to be dangerous. Consequences belong to choices. We walked to our seats. The band started Pomp and Circumstance for the 1000th time in history, and it still felt like new asphalt. Theo slid me a second sheet I hadn't seen, the safe speech, and raised an eyebrow with a question only I could answer. Theo slid me the safe speech and whispered, choose at the mic. Our trap wasn't a sting, it was a timestamp. 10 minutes before processional, we met the district compliance officer in the side corridor, where the trophy case reflected fluorescent ambition. I'll be in the back row, she said, lifting a small notebook. If retaliation occurs, mic cut, diploma withheld, staff intervention. Text me red and aisle number. She handed Theo a printed memo with the district seal. Student speech with factual content pertaining to school policy is protected. Administration will not impede absent disruption. She'd sent it to the superintendent and Klein 5 minutes earlier. Their red receipts pinged my phone like little shields. I gave Klein a thin folder labeled receipt. Inside, 1-page process proposal, copies of the award letter, metadata printouts, spreadsheet history, bylaw clause 3, 2 and 4, 1 highlighted, and the case number. He initialed the cover page for receipt with the time, 6:47 p.m. I hate that we're here, he said quietly. I hate that we're needed, I replied. But kids watch how adults fix things. He nodded, and for a second, we were just 2 tired people who want less theater and more shop manuals. We also invited a witness who couldn't be spun, the district's print shop manager, to stand by the gym doors with a stack of our transparency notes in an envelope, time-stamped 7:45 p.m. for release after diplomas. If everything went clean, we'd hand them out by the exits. If the mic cut, we'd hand them to the first camera crew we saw. MS. Ortiz took a seat 3 rows up with a program and the steady gaze of a lighthouse. Coach stood near the band kids, a handout folded in his pocket like a spare plan. I texted myself a 5-word mantra. Propose. Don't point. Dates only. Theo ran his fingers along the edge of the podium as if checking it for burrs. He slipped this safe speech into my jacket. You choose if I choke, he said with a grin that looked like courage wearing a rented suit. I shook my head. You won't, I said, because sometimes parents get to predict correctly. The lights dimmed. Klein welcomed families. Award lists were read. The Hail Promise line returned to the script where it had belonged since March. My throat unknotted a fraction. Then Klein announced, Senior Address by Theo Riley. Theo stepped forward, folded his notes, and looked at the sea of faces with the calm of someone who knows where each bolt should go. Theo nodded once and said, Let's do this under your clock. He began like every good speech begins, with thanks not as theater but as inventory. Teachers who stayed late, cafeteria staff who learned names, janitors who kept us from slipping on our own lives. Then he pivoted. We're told to be grateful, he said, and we are. But gratitude without clarity is a receipt for something you didn't buy. He lifted the page. So facts. The room settled the way kitchens do when a timer dings. On March 12th, I received a letter signed by Dr. Klein and the PDA treasurer awarding me the Hail Promise Scholarship for $5,000. On June 2nd at 6:14 a.m., I received an email stating the award was under review due to concerns with no notice under Clause 4, one that allows 5 days to respond. On June 2nd at 2:17 p.m., the PDA disbursement spreadsheet shows my line moved to pending review and an internal reallocation entered for the exact amount to a separate program. A murmur rolled the bleachers. Marissa's smile contracted into accounting. Theo continued, steady. These are not accusations. They are timestamps. Policy should be stronger than gossip and optics. My proposal is simple and applies to every student. 1. Place disputed awards into district escrow until notice and response is complete. 2. Publish fund bylaws. 3. Require a 72-hour notice before any public retraction so families aren't blindsided. I will accept my award under these conditions, and I will applaud if another student benefits from the same fairness. He looked at Klein, then the superintendent, then the crowd. We don't need villains, he said. We need procedures that protect kids from adult incentives. He stepped back half an inch, the tiniest space that says your move. Klein cleared his throat, glanced toward the compliance officer, and said into his mic, voice clear, "Thank you, Theo. The district will follow policy as written." The gym inhaled. Marissa stood, clapped twice, then stopped when no one followed fast enough to make it look spontaneous. A security guard shifted near the soundboard and then stilled. The band teacher wiped his glasses very slowly. From the back row, the compliance officer nodded like a metronome hitting the downbeat. The print shop manager checked his watch and put a thumb on the envelope flap. Then the gym erupted as security moved and cameras kept rolling. Security didn't move for Theo. They moved toward a dad shouting that kids should learn respect, a sentiment as old as chalk. Klein raised a hand and restored order with the authority of a man who just chose a spine. Diplomas resumed. When Theo's name was called, he crossed the stage like a person walking his own length, shook hands without flinching, and slipped back to his seat while my heart learned a slower beat. After the recessional, we executed the rest of the plan. Handouts at the doors, 3 packets to local reporters, 1 to the board clerk, and a PDF to the superintendent for the public file. By morning, the district posted a notice, escrow pending policy review, and a PDF of the Hale bylaws without track changes, cleaned, but the clauses still there. The compliance officer logged our case as preliminary substantiated. An inquiry opened into PDA procedures since January. My schedule took a hit when online warriors called the bus depot demanding I be fired for harassing donors. HR interviewed me. I showed them documents. My supervisor said, "Bring the buses back clean and on time," which is what decent bosses say. Parents split like oil and water. Some messaged me thank you with the quiet urgency of people who see how close they were to the edge. Others posted paragraphs about humility and biting hands. Marissa's statement landed at noon. A photo of a ribbon cutting with a caption about celebrating visibility. No mention of escrow. Reporters asked for comment. We gave one line. We're grateful the district is following policy to protect all students. Theo refused interviews. I'm not a character, he said. I'm a graduate. Then came the pressure dressed as paperwork. A letter from a foundation affiliate warned that publicly antagonistic conduct may negatively influence third-party scholarship committees. Ms. Ortiz drafted responses that said, in lawyer plain, retaliation against factual speech concerning policy will be documented and reported. The superintendent emailed a district-wide memo. No staff shall condition recommendations on donor relations. He attached the compliance officer's guidance. Small lines on big letterhead. Sometimes that's how tides turn. That night, a thick envelope with no return address slid under our door with 7 words. Retract publicly or risk your college package. That night a letter threatened college aid if we didn't retract. We took the envelope to the district office the next morning. The compliance officer scanned it, logged it, and asked if we wanted police involvement. Document first, de-escalate always, I said, because my job teaches you that sirens aren't step 1. She nodded and added the letter to the case file. The superintendent, his public calm now edged with private resolve, issued another memo. Any scholarship provider partnering with the district must affirm non-retaliation against factual student speech. Re-up partnerships signed it in a day, 2 didn't, and went very quiet online. Meanwhile, policy changed in the place where it matters, the website footer. B12 disbursement tracker became public view read-only, with version history visible to anyone with a link. The Hale promise line sat in escrow with a note, pending completion of required notice window. Ms. Ortiz organized a work session to write a permanent 72-hour notice rule into district guidelines. Parents showed up with clipboards instead of pitchforks. Coach Jamal spoke once. Kids shouldn't need courage to get what a letter promised. Heads nodded in rows. At home, we built boundaries to prevent advocacy from swallowing a life. We made quiet hours, no email after 9, no doom scrolling before breakfast. Theo set his phone to grayscale. We taped his cap on a kitchen hook and wrote no performances on a sticky note above it. He met with a college advisor who said, admissions committees like principled kids who can show receipts. Theo chose to submit a brief addendum. 3 bullet points, 5 dates, 0 adjectives. We also wrote a letter to Marissa, polite, unmailed, therapeutic, naming the harm without prosecuting the soul behind it. We shredded it after reading aloud over pancakes, because closure sometimes looks like confetti. Dr. Klein asked Theo to consult on a student policy council in the fall. Theo said yes with the condition that minutes reflect votes, not vibes. The council added a student seat on the PDA allocation committee. Ms. Ortiz smiled, like weather clearing. On Saturday, Theo and I walked to the bus yard with coffee and silence, and the kind of light that belongs to people who survived a week without becoming what they fought. He touched the side of bus 14 and said, engines don't care about optics. They care about maintenance, I said. So do institutions. He nodded. So do we. On Saturday, Theo hung his cap and asked about apprenticeships. The award posted to escrow on Tuesday at 9:03 a.m., and 3 other lines joined it by noon. Kids whose families hadn't known they could ask which clause? What date? Who benefits? The district published a timeline of the inquiry. The PDA minutes now show votes that previously hid in hallways. Marissa's nephew's program received funding too, through a separate, transparent vote that didn't cannibalize a kid's promise. I don't need her apology. I needed the ledger to stop moving at night. People keep asking if Theo's speech burned bridges. Bridges that collapse under the weight of dates weren't bridges. They were posters taped to brick. Real bridges handle load. My advice to any parent with a shaking program in a gym that smells like varnish: learn the map. Ask for bylaws. Export. And will not screenshots. Print headers. Name times. Propose repairs. Tape your kid's cap where you can see it and remind yourself awards are lagging indicators of work already done. Teach your kid that gratitude is a verb with receipts. We kept our promise to avoid theater. We didn't say villain names into microphones. We said months and amounts. We didn't celebrate our win. We documented a fix and went to work. That's the thing about process. It's not heroic, but it keeps 1,000 little wrongs from snowballing into one big righteous story that eats everyone. On our fridge, next to the mason jar that now holds screws instead of coins, there's a single index card. Accuracy is love in steel-toe boots. Under it, transparency notes clipped for the next family that needs them. We'll share quietly when asked, because virality is a sugar high and policy is protein. Theo's calendar has a reminder: student council, minutes must match votes. Mine has oil change, bus 14, which is how I say devotion with wrenches. When he left for his shift at the hardware store, he looked back and said, thanks for choosing procedures over performances. I said, thanks for choosing facts over applause. He laughed, a sound like a socket seating true. Tomorrow he speaks again, and this time, nobody holds the mic.